Yes, and I respect that. But my client has a championship to contest.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's Crackerjack, and as you can see on screen, we are playing some Formula 1 2017. We've just walked into Emma Jenkins's office. This is our first episode. We've just signed with Haas F1 as well, going into the Melbourne Grand Prix on the first weekend of the new season. Let's get straight into it. She's handing us our contract. Our teammate is going to be Romain Grosjean. Like I say, Melbourne Grand Prix first up. And hopefully we can start the season off getting a solid amount of points. And I hope you guys enjoy this. If you do, please leave a like, subscribe, comment, give me feedback, all of that good stuff. We're now going to head out of Emma's office. Hopefully we can do well in practice and do well in qualifying, and like I say, finish well in the race.
We're about to join the action in what is sure to be an interesting practice session here in Melbourne. It's not long until we get the session underway and we'll have some cars appearing out on the track. So Anthony, lots to do of course in these sessions, lots of programs to run. What are you looking for when you jump in the car for free practice?
Well, you have basic checks first of all. You know, is the car working correctly? What are the track conditions like? And you'll be chasing that as the session goes on. Things like that. Then you start getting into the nitty-gritty of it all, and they become more like test sessions where it's all about gathering new data, testing components, tweaking the setup and so on. So there's only so much actual practice that these drivers need. Most of them will be plenty familiar enough with the track layout, either from previous experience or from the simulator.
Okay guys, now we're in FP1, and as you can see, what's going on behind me is this is some of the new practice simulations that you can run whilst you're in the free practice sessions. This one is just generally getting to know the track and trying to, nail every corner. As you can see, each of the corners and entrance exits and turning in points are marked as these little gates, and as you go through them, you get marked on how well you go through them and stuff. They have several of these ones, and as you can see at the top of the screen, we have nailed a few corners towards the middle part of the track. I believe that's turns 4 all the way up to turn 12 we managed to nail in this lap, and you get points based off of how well you do in these practice simulations, which you can then use towards your R&D on the car, and you can spend the points in trying to develop the car. You see that we do get the best amount of points available there, 480 when we required 470. We do move on now into the fuel saving simulation that we ran. Unfortunately, I don't have the tyre wear simulation that you can run, because quite honestly guys, I messed that one up. The tyre degradation was poor. I don't have a steering wheel, I'm using a controller, and honestly it's very, very hard not to try and turn too harshly into a corner. The fuel saving one was a bit nice. As you can see, we are just pushing it into the purple zone at the moment. We did however manage to nail the green one on the previous lap. We were going for trying to see if we could do one better. You can see we're coming into the final corner, turn 16 now, and we are just about in the purple zone, coming up to the finish line, and unfortunately we do just drop out of the purple, so we finish with a good fuel saving. But yeah, we'll get on now out of FP1, and we are at our team bus.
You got my message. Perfect. Welcome to home away from home. We get more real-time data from the factory now than ever before, and it all comes through here. So I have to spend more time checking over the reports and less time hunting you down in the hospitality suite. To that end... Sorry, just a sec. Yeah, Chris, is this important? I'm in the middle of something. Oh, okay. Right. Well, that makes no sense. have Sarah reset the simulation and run it again. Okay. Sorry about that. As I was saying, we've set up a desk for you at the front here. You can get onto the network from your laptop, so make sure to check the R&D screen regularly. And let us know how you want to use the data that we've collected over the weekend and through the practice programs. Also, bear in mind that the news from the factory won't always be good. Sometimes tests fail, like you've seen just now. And when that happens, we have to divert additional resources to fix it. C'est la vie, I'm afraid.
So I believe that was our race technical manager there. We do have these resource points which I was talking about. We have just over 2,000 of them from the practice sessions that we've done so far. You open up your laptop and you can have a look at the R and D tree. We've got 4 main sections to this tree. We've got powertrain, we've got durability, aerodynamics, and of course chassis. I'm not really going to go into upgrading anything at the moment, as I do just want to get into FP2 to finish off some more of these racing simulations. And right now we're going into the qualifying simulation. You can see we have 3 laps to try and nail our qualifying sim. We messed up a bit on the first lap, however we are back at it now on our second lap. You can see the top right hand corner, we are about 3/10 of a second under the required time for this stint, coming now into turn 11 and turn number 12, coming up towards the end of the track on this nice little straight in the build up to turn 13, braking now, turning in, clipping the right apex, and you can see that we're just on the cusp as we turn into turn 14 of making it into that timing that we need to of course achieve. We hit the apex nicely into turn 15, gently onto the power as we come up to the final corner at Albert Park, and we are heading towards the line, and of course we do manage to nail it. We hit the target and we move over to our race simulation. We get 5 laps and we have to try and get 30 points to meet good target, 50 points to try and get the best target that we can. We are on 20 points coming up through turns 11 and 12. I feel like we might have just hit Sebastian Vettel, who's coming up behind us. Hopefully we didn't ruin him too much. Braking now down into turn 13, clipping the apex nicely on the exit as well. Turn 14, braking ever so slightly on the power, coming now up to the penultimate corner, braking, clipping the inside of the apex. Sebastian Vettel still up behind us as we take the final corner, head towards the line, and we manage to nail that target score, plus 20, so we're on 40 points.
Guess who made the gossip columns this morning? Everyone's talking about this new rival you have. Check his stats out.
So we now have been given a rival in our race, and of course for this season it is going to be our teammate Roman Grosjean, who races for us in our Haas F1 team. So he's going to be our rival for the rest of the season. And we also have a goal for qualifying.
Hi, it's Emma. Your qualifying goals came up in the board meeting this morning. Here's what to expect.
So our qualifying goal is of course to finish in 15th or higher, and of course beat our teammate and our rival Roman Grosjean. So without further ado, open up our laptop and we are going to go straight into the short qualifying.
Welcome to Melbourne, where qualifying for the Australian Grand Prix should be getting underway shortly. So then, Ant, it's another Grand Prix weekend, another exciting qualifying session ahead of us. What are you going to be looking out for over the next few minutes?
The first question's going to be who can avoid making mistakes. There isn't much margin for error in qualifying, and you have to bear in mind that the track conditions may have changed since practice, particularly as we've had a few support races in the meantime. If the brake bias settings, for example, don't take this into account, it's extremely easy to lock up a front wheel and cause a flat spot. Just like that, your lap's ruined and you've wasted a set of tyres to boot.
Okay, so now we're coming up on our first flying lap in this qualifying session as we cross the start finish line, coming now down into turn number 1, hit the apex on the right hand side, slowly on the power as we move through turn number 2, open up the DRS, approaching down the straight onto turn number 3, braking, hard braking. We actually run a little bit wider than I would have liked to have run as we approach turn number 4 here, and flat on the power into turn number 5, a bit on the grass there, but you know, we managed to get away with it, braking now down into turn number 6 and of course turn number 7 before the long right hand of turn number 8. Going good at the moment. It feels like we've got a lot of power in this car. Turning now into turn number 9 and number 10 before the long left hand turn down the back of this Melbourne circuit. We can see Stoffel van Dorn has just gone through doing a fastest time of 1:32 as we managed to negotiate turns 11 and 12 without any hassle. Carlos Sainz going through in 1:30, so it looks like we're on track to beat them at the moment. We're coming up behind Lewis Hamilton as we go through turn number 13. Slightly on the brakes into turn number 14, hit the apex, hard on the brakes as we come around the penultimate corner, and it looks as if we might be able to accelerate towards maybe a high finish. I don't know if we get how high we're going to get on the DRS, crossing the line, and we managed to set the fastest lap, but we aren't going to stop there, guys. We feel like we've still got enough left in this car at the moment that we can hopefully push on and try and set another flying lap, opening up the DRS once again, coming down to turn number 3, hard on the brakes. We can see Lewis Hamilton is being held up by some other driver. Looks like it might be a Renault, maybe Palmer or Hulkenberg might be holding up Lewis Hamilton at the moment. We'll have to have a better look to see if Lewis Hamilton does get any trouble, and as we turn in we crash into the back of Jolyon Palmer, coming down around turn number 8, which is a bit unfortunate for us, and I feel like this is where we're going to give up on this lap. Palmer does eventually get out of our way, but as you can see from the top right, we are about 3 seconds down, so we do eventually give up on this lap. However, we do come out for a third qualifying lap now, turning into turn number 6, turn number 7 now. You can see that we are doing a lot better than we were before, coming now down, through turn number 11 and turn number 12. We are still very much in the green delta zone, coming up into the heavy braking zone of turn 13, braking nicely and smoothly, but unfortunately we do get onto the power just a bit too early there, and we do lose the back end ever so slightly, and you can see that that has messed up our delta times quite significantly. So as we round the penultimate corner, I do feel as if this is perhaps just one too far. We do pull into the pits, and we are going to have to hope that our first lap was good enough.
The grid is all set then for the race tomorrow, but before we go, let's quickly remind ourselves of our top 3, who are Bottas, Raikkonen and Sebastian Vettel. Goodbye for now then, but we're really just getting started. Make sure to join us again for Lights Out tomorrow. It's out with the old and in with the new here at Albert Park as we usher in what we hope will be a triumphant new era of Formula One racing. For our drivers though, it's very much business as usual as they look to be first across that line and get their championship off to a winning start. Just south of Melbourne's downtown business centre is the one and only Albert Park circuit. 3.3 miles of public roads, all closed for the weekend of course, make for a bumpy racing surface with little undulation. There are 16 corners around the lake, but a couple of good passing opportunities as well, thanks in part to the DRS zones into turn 1 and turn 3. Today's race, of course, not simply the start of a new season, but the start of a new kind of Formula One. Anthony Davidson, great to have you with us once again. This is a big moment for the sport. Big changes to the technical regulations. The potential, perhaps, to give us the biggest shake-up since 2014. Very different cars visually and, fingers crossed, much faster as well.
Good thing then that combined these teams put in just a shade over 13,000 kilometres on the clock during testing. The cornering speed of these new machines is absolutely unbelievable. How many lap records are still held by Michael Schumacher from 2004? Well, on the right day, on the right tyres, we might just be threatening them this year. Wider tyres, wider cars, more downforce. I have to say they look great, and the qualifying spectacle is undebatable. Now the big question remains, can they follow? Can they race? Or have these new rules gone too far?
We're almost ready to go then, and this is what the starting grid looks like for today's race. Good job yesterday from Valtteri Bottas. The Finn starts from pole position, edging out Raikkonen, who'll start P2. Looking down the rest of the grid we have Vettel, Hamilton, Max Verstappen, and a Haas. Perez, Grosjean, Kvyat, and Felipe Massa. Ricciardo, Stroll, Nico Hulkenberg, and Sainz, Palmer, Ocon, Fernando Alonso, and Stoffel van Dorn. Ericsson and Pascal Wehrlein completes the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track.
We've qualified above where we expected to be, so try your best to hold on to this position in the race.
So we have qualified in 7th place for our first ever F1 2017 GP. Now we're picking our race strategy. You can see that we've got two different options that we can go. We can go for a 2-stop or a 1-stop. The 2-stop is slightly longer, but it requires less tyre management. We do bump up, of course, our fuel load ever so slightly to make sure that we do get to the end of this 15-lap, very short race. We are going to go with the 1-stop strategy. You can also toggle your personalised or your projected sort of strategy for that specific 1-stop strategy. You can either go for 5 laps and then for 10, or for 4 laps and for 11. We're going to stick with the 4 and then 11. So here we go, guys, straight up. We are starting off in 6th place, in fact, in our first Melbourne Grand Prix of the 2017 season. We get an absolutely horrific start there. My reaction time was just not expecting those lights to go out ever so quickly. However, we do manage to dive up the inside of Kvyat alongside Romain Grosjean as well. A bit of contact there with Felipe Massa. Pretty bold move from myself, if I do say so. Felipe Massa manages to actually get out of the way of us, yields a position, and we do find ourselves only one position down after that absolutely horrific start, coming through the first couple of corners now. Turn number 5, trying to go around the outside of Perez there, bit bold from me. Do run it onto the grass, coming now down into turn number 6, number 7 now, and then on to turn number 8. Sergio Perez pulling out a bit of a lead on us already. We don't want him to get too far away. Late braking down into turn number 9 as we do come up now to turn number 10. Felipe Massa all over my backside as we have a quick look behind us down this long left-hand turn. Coming up now, braking early into turn number 11, and of course the long chicane, turn number 12. Cut the corner ever so slightly, managed to get away with it. Felipe Massa, however, still very close behind me. Sergio Perez creeping ever so slightly further away from me as we take turn number 13. Coming up now, braking into turn number 14. Still trying to catch up and make some lost time on Perez. Taking the penultimate corner, turning in, and we do run a bit wide into the final corner. However, we do manage to maintain 7th position, and we of course do manage to survive our first ever F1 2017 lap. We fast forward now a bit further, coming up to the end of the 2nd lap, braking down into the penultimate corner, and there we have it. There's our first yellow flag. Something else has happened further up the field. We are in 6th place behind Sergio Perez as a car that's pulled off over to the right hand side. Perhaps a technical failure. It looks as if it might be one of the Ferraris has come off and retired. It is of course Sebastian Vettel out of the race, out of the first ever race in my career mode, the Melbourne Grand Prix 2017, and we have been able now to close the gap ever so slightly on Sergio Perez. Hopefully we can make more of this in the coming laps. We fast forward it now, coming up to the end of the 3rd lap, braking down into turn 15. Unfortunately, getting a bit too bold, trying to maybe duck around the outside of Sergio Perez there. We lose all of the time that we had made up on him, which is a bit unfortunate for us because, to be honest, we were actually going rather well in terms of catching him up. He now has a 2.2 second lead over us as we start the 4th lap. Of course, this is the lap where we are scheduled to pit. So let's see how close we can get to Sergio Perez before we have to come in and pit. Coming up now to the end of the 4th lap, around turn number 15, as you see the blue line indicating that we are coming in to the pit, and it does look as if we are going to be one of, if not the only driver to come into the pit at the end of the 4th lap. Yes, indeed, we are the only driver coming in, so inevitably we will probably end up coming out of the pit and rejoining the track. in 19th and last place. Yes, indeed we do. Of course, Sebastian Vettel being eliminated from the race, having to retire with what we feel might be a technical problem. So we rejoin the track in 19th place, which is a bit unfortunate for us. However, like I say, half the track haven't pitted yet, so hopefully we might be able to make up some positions when they do come into pit. And as we rejoin it now, coming up to the end of lap 6, you can see we're up into 17th place already. Before these pit stops happen, we see a load of cars pulling over to the right hand side, pulling into the pits. As we come up now to the start finish line, we see what looks to be Force India coming out of the pit lane as we do cross that start finish line. But however, that means nothing to us. We do end up in 12th place, and we are now chasing down Stoffel Van Dorn in the McLaren. Coming up now towards the back end of the same lap number 7, we are looking to try and take a dive around Stoffel Van Dorn, coming into turn 11 and 12, the long chicane there. However, we do back off a bit as we don't have enough room. Coming up now to turn number 13, Stoffel Van Dorn. His tyres are older than ours. We have a look down his inside, make the move, and we make it stick. Stoffel Van Dorn has no way to respond to that. We do clip the apex a bit on turn number 14, braking now down into turn number 15, and we are up into 11th place. Pascal Wehrlein in the Sauber pits ahead of us, and also Esteban Ocon is in the pit as well. So coming up to about halfway point in this race, we are going to be finding ourselves in 9th place and chasing down Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. A bit later on now, in lap number 9, we see that Max Verstappen has managed to overtake the Renault of Jolyon Palmer. So Jolyon Palmer perhaps struggling a bit on his tyres. I don't know if he's come in for a pit stop yet, but it looks as if we are gaining on him ever so slightly as we come now into turn number 7. We look maybe to have a look down the outside of turn number 8. However, we do the switchback coming up to turn number 9, diving in. We do squeeze him out, perhaps a bit of contact there. However, we do get away with it and manage to come away into turn number 10 on this long left-hander with P8, and now it looks as if we're going to be trying to chase down Max Verstappen ahead of us for the remainder of this race. And like I said, guys, we were trying to chase down Max Verstappen. However, he has pulled out quite a significant lead over us. We also did manage to move up into 5th place. I believe that there was one more pit that hadn't happened. However, we do rejoin it now as we come into our final lap. Coming now down, braking into turn number 1, just missing the apex, but we do clip the apex ever so slightly in turn number 2 and number 3. Coming up now to turn number 3, braking, going a bit wider than I would have liked to have gone. Coming now into turn number 4 as we speed up now, flat out, turning to the right, clipping the outside apex of turn number 5. Heavy braking now, down into turn number 6. Turn number 7 with ease. It looks as if we are going to be solidifying our 5th place position. Max Verstappen is about 5 seconds ahead of us as we do come in to turn number 6. Or turn number 10, sorry. I keep getting confused with all of these turns. Everything's happening so fast right now. Coming up to the long chicane in turn number 11. Onto the right hand side of turn number 12, cutting the corner ever so slightly. Perez is 3 seconds behind us. It looks as if we do have 5th place in the bag in our first ever Formula 1 GP. As you can see on the screen, Valtteri Bottas has come away with the win in the Melbourne GP 2017. Take the penultimate corner now, braking, just don't do anything stupid like we did earlier in the race when we lost position on Perez. Coming up now into the final corner, running it a bit wide, and we now head over to the pit wall, celebrating with our teammates for a fantastic 5th place finish.
Okay, pick up rubber and bring it home.
Brilliant stuff from Mercedes today. That's another historic win. And Anthony Davidson, give me your thoughts. How did they accomplish this result?
I feel like consistency was probably the key today. There's being quick, and then there's being quick lap after lap after lap. If you can do that, you can capitalise on other people's errors without making many of your own. and that's an approach that can push you a long way up the field.
So as I say that, we can see the drivers coming out now to collect their trophies. It's yet more silverware to take back to their base in Brackley after another excellent Grand Prix. And now let's take a look at the drivers' standings. Valtteri Bottas takes over the lead of the Drivers' Championship after an excellent result. And now I'd like to ask you, Anthony Davidson, who was your driver of the day?
Oh, well, I'm a bit spoilt for choice, Crofty. My instinct says Valtteri Bottas, and looking down the field, no one really jumps out at me to make me change my mind.
On to the constructors then. Mercedes move to the top of the table. After all that excitement, it's time for a lie down, I think. Thanks for joining us, and goodbye until the next race.